Jennifer FitzPatrick, welcome to the Sports Doctor.
Thanks for having me on, Doc.
Give us some background on yourself and this whole topic, again, of trying to pay attention to from burnout of providers to service to all these important points on this topic that you're so involved in.
Yeah, so I've been in this field. I'm about to turn 50. I've been in this field since I was 16. One of my first jobs in high school was in a nursing home. So I've been working in healthcare pretty much my whole life. I've been a psychotherapist. I have observed in every setting of healthcare lousy service as a rule in a lot of domains. And so what I wanted to do was, again, look at hospitality. Look at what can be done to clients and patients when they come to us. They're not just looking for us to fix their broken leg. They want to be reassured. They want to be comfortable. And that's what reimagining customer service in healthcare is all about.
You know, bedside manner has always been such a big deal. We've all grown up hearing that term. Of course, as we've all watched the evolution of medicine and insurance companies and the legal world, the whole thing has gotten so incredibly objective, times 100 with all the telemedicine and all of these things with the pandemic. But I think it's a great point that it's such important relationship with patients and doctors, where there's sometimes there's just no real time, and patients face some of these different challenges. What are some of the points that you have found that are so important in the including some hospitality, making people aware of these challenges?
Well, something really, really simple that healthcare providers can do and their staff can do is just introduce yourself to the patient. How many times do you go to a new doctor, nobody introduces themselves? We go to a restaurant, and a teenage server will introduce themselves. It's really not that hard. A lot of the tips that are in this book are really about just cheap, inexpensive, simple things to do. And all of us know it intuitively, but are we doing it? Are we practicing it? And so it's really hold your providers accountable. We are paying more and more in healthcare than we ever have, and we're getting less and less. And so
we pay more than anybody. It's always been a tremendous enigma in the United States, is we pay more than anybody else in the world, and there's all sorts of gaps. And this is one of them, the whole doctor-patient relationship. I've always prided myself in my practice with having those kinds of relationships with the family, the coach, the individual. And I think that the business of medicine that's become so prevalent with super groups, they've lost focus. And I'll apply to your world the same three words that I apply everywhere on the Sports Doctor, Jennifer. And the first word is called awareness of what's going on. The second word's called education, talking exactly about what you're talking about. The third one is positive action. And how has the medical world reacted to you paying attention to the hospitality side? What's been your feedback?
Well, it's interesting. I interviewed over 20 C-suite executives at hospitals, chief nursing officers, CEOs of hospitals, CEOs of senior living companies, and everybody agrees that we can do better. But part of it is that we, the patients, have to ask for more. We have to insist upon more. We have to fill out those surveys. Tell them if you're not happy with something. Yes, maybe they fixed your broken leg, but were they polite to you? Was it noisy when you were trying to sleep at night?
It's such great common sense. It's such great caring and empathy. It's almost surprising sometimes to hear how simple, and everybody gets it. I think everybody gets, what you're talking about. Everybody listening to the Sports Doctor. I'm Dr. Bob Weil, sports podiatrist. If you go to my website, sportsdoctorradio.com, if you go over to radio shows, you go back years. What are the topics? who's the guest. Listen to whatever you'd like. Lots of action on the newspaper articles and magazine front. Excitement with MVP Parent Magazine, and so many different areas. We have thousands of followers. We get all sorts of feedback. We provide good sports medicine, fitness and wellness information. If you want to follow me on Twitter at SportsDoc Radio, talking with Jennifer FitzPatrick, again, who is paying big attention. I like how you got, the name of your group is the Generations Health Education Incorporated. I thought that's pretty witty, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm at generationsgen.com.
Okay, it's a great title, and again, it's a great challenge, and I think it'll be interesting to see again how the business of medicine responds. You couldn't have gotten more of an education early than taking care of seniors in assisted living. The first thing you said was, the care's lousy. So I think, that awareness is going to spark a lot of interest, I would think, in order to be able to get the kind of cooperation where the education comes. And like you said, it's interesting when we talk to great coaches, great sports team individuals in what I call the whole mental game. They all talk so much about communication. They all talk so much about, whether it's the young athlete, speaking up, like you're talking about what they're concerned about, or their parents, or like you said, if you're a patient, where you might be demanding, come on, man, at least some courtesy, right?
It really is tough right now, Doc, when you figure all the shortages we had even before the pandemic. So I definitely have a lot of empathy for the healthcare providers, but it's really so important that you're gonna pay with your time on one end or the other. You're gonna maybe invest a couple minutes in saying hello, smiling at the patient, introducing yourself. If you don't do that, you're going to be investing time dealing with their complaints.
Again, it's another great point. Amazingly, the application, again, whether you're talking about the parental information to the young athlete, whether you're talking about a coach's information with his team, whether you're talking, again, about an organization that's trying to insist, that they have at the very least restaurant-oriented hospitality, or at least they pay attention to that, because I think everybody gets it in that regard. And, it's a great point when you're talking about the hospitality side. I know you pay attention to people, what do they do if they think their doctor's, burned out, or they're not happy with those kinds of situations. Those are interesting topics that aren't necessarily discussed enough, which is taking a look at maybe the kind of pressure your doctor's under. Maybe you want to change doctors.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because where I go to the doctor, I'm about to change to go to a concierge physician, because it's been a revolving door of doctors. The relationship with your doctor is supposed to be sacrosanct. They're supposed to know you. They're supposed to understand you. Concierge
physician has always been for people who can afford it. The ability to really have a doctor that you really have rapport with and confidence in on call. Somebody who's going to get right back. It's a gigantic service. And it's very, very valuable, especially, again, when people would say, I need a quarterback. And many times on the Sports Doctor, we talk about that, whether I'm going to recommend you to a nutritionist, whether I'm going to recommend you to a sports psychologist, whether I'm going to recommend you to a individual for physical training. Having that quarterback, so the concierge physician is something. Have you started that on yourself?
Yeah. Well, we're right about to switch, and you want to know what the catalyst was. The catalyst was, and I talk a lot about these examples in Reimagining Customer Service in Healthcare. For my regular doctor, I had a sinus infection, and they put me on a telehealth with somebody that didn't know me, didn't know my history. They only had my chart in front of me, And they weren't going to prescribe what was prescribed for me every time I get the sinus infection. They wanted to switch things up for no good reason. And we see that a lot now in primary care, where
now
the person doesn't know you.
The convenience for the patient of being able to put them on the video immediately with a specialist is a positive.
Definitely.
Sometimes, again, it's sure not personal, but, I couldn't get an appointment. Oh, you're on the phone with them now. So telemedicine has exploded out of necessity because of the pandemic. People couldn't get out. Nobody was going out. So all of a sudden, this whole world exploded with all of its fits and crannies. You giving a great example of one of them, which is, the person really doesn't know me. And those kinds of, let alone, oh my gosh, they were going to give you a different prescription.
Well, and like you just said, I think there are a lot of wonderful benefits of telehealth. There really are. But the thing about it is the inconsistency of the provider. Back when you and I were younger, you had your primary care doc, and when you didn't feel well, that's who you saw. And so, you get farmed out to, it's okay, you got to go to urgent care, and that's sadly one of the reasons.
Well, the business, again, the continued education, like what you're talking about in so many ways, on the whole new generation of medicine. I tell people all the time, the new medicine is number 1, eat smarter, number 2, keep moving, and number 3, reduce stress, somehow, in one way or another. But the business of this is really what you're talking about, the inability to have that relationship, educating people that they should be paying much, much more attention to this, and seeing whether you could change, whether it's the insurance industry, which is really, rules the roost in so many instances, and physicians are working for everybody else. It's a whole new dynamic, and I think education like what you're paying attention to is going to really help.
Definitely. And I think the big thing is that every practice, every hospital, every organization, look at your reviews. Where are you seeing consistent comments? Is it about certain people? Do they need more training? Or are they maybe not in the right job? Sometimes you have a good person, but they just simply don't have the skills to be personable and to keep somebody calm and comfortable. The thing is, Doc, nobody likes procuring healthcare services. No one's like, yeah, I get to go to the hospital, or I get
Well, that's why holistic medicine has been, I've had holistic medicine on the sports doctor for decades. They used to call it alternative medicine. It wasn't a good word. It meant like it was one thing or another, so they changed the term to complementary, which makes so much more sense. Natural ways, holistic medicine being included, many times with a whole different attitude towards the interaction with the patient compared to, American medicine, which is a pill, an injection, or a prescription in one way or another. So I think, again, the providers listening to some of this and understanding that, wow, I got to pay attention to reducing stress because it's not coming across very, very well. I think that's a big part of the awareness situation, and it'll be interesting to see how the insurance companies respond, Jennifer.
Well, it's not healthcare. So much of healthcare is not consumer facing. You think about senior living or home care; they don't take insurance, and so they have actually learned a lot. And I think a lot of traditional healthcare can learn from them, because they have really tried to blend hospitality in with providing great clinical outcomes, because they accept cash.
Again, it's very, very sensible. You're really talking about relationships and interaction of people, especially what's more important to them than their own health or the health of their loved ones. And, feeling that, again, the empathy is included. And it's important, I think, is and also putting some attention again to the providers, and knowing what a lot of them are dealing with, and everybody trying to take a deep breath or two, step back, and, pay attention to the relationship side dash hospitality. Makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely something, no doctor or nurse they're not going to charm school. They learn to
Jennifer, I knew the time would fly. Give me the website. People could find out about you and your book.
Sure. Generations Gen with a J, Generations Health with a J. Thank you so much for having me on.